Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics with your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. A lot to talk about today. Ordinals, obviously just a massive theme. Under the surface, a bit of an AI art theme as well. First, let's start with a quick market overview. Volumes were up a fair bit. You can see the ETH volumes up back in that like 25,000 ETH range. A lot of that's from Blur. You can see here that Blur volumes are rising pretty quickly over the past couple weeks. I'm not so sure it's as good as it sounds though. If you look at unique buyers or total trades, that trend is pretty flat. So I wanted to dig in a bit on what's happening. I looked at Pudgy Penguins, which did the most volume of any collection yesterday. And you can see here that the buyers, these are the 8 or 9 wallets that did the most volume. You can see that the buyers that bought were also massive sellers. So you just had, I think this is a lot of airdrop farming. And I think that really played out here. You have to go all the way over to the 7th biggest buyer to look for someone who actually bought and held on Blur with Pudgy Penguins. This is true across Blur. You can see here, this is basically the blue is how much ETH the biggest players bought. The red is how much they sold. And you can see all the big buyers were just flipping, selling. And I think that's a lot of airdrop farming. You know, you put that in contrast with OpenSea, you know, the biggest buyers in OpenSea just bought and held. So very, very different dynamic. Now, the other thing to note, though, is if you look back here, you know, the biggest players were doing 1,000 to 2,000 ETH of buys, whereas the biggest buyers on OpenSea yesterday were just doing 150 ETH. So really very different dynamics. My general sense right now is this Blur airdrop is upcoming. You know, we know that the Looks market cap for that token is worth around $150 million, and Blur is unquestionably, you know, much bigger than Looks. So I think a lot of people are preparing and trying to do what they can to get more of that airdrop, which is driving some of these volumes. Again, if you look, you know, we talked about how volumes were higher. Actually, the unique buyers are on the downtrend basically since the beginning of the year, which you can see here. Large cap index broadly flat, floor is pretty flat, CloneX up a little bit, Guttercat down a little bit. A bunch of interesting things happening in art collections though. A ton of volume in Chromie Squiggles, which we'll talk about a bit later, but also, you know, within Braindrops, you know, the AI art, there was a lot of volume. And then also Tout Tracé, which is an Art Blocks Presents project, actually had a pretty good debut yesterday. Looking a bit more at this, you can see, you know, this is the work of art. It actually took a while for it to mint out. It minted out at a 0.15, 0.16 ETH price, but then over the course of the day, that price rose. Each dot here is for a different trade. A lot of that volume, you know, in that 0.2 range in the beginning. Right now, you're up to a 0.59 floor. So really good returns there, about a 3 or 4x for people who bought into that mint. Another project that has interesting stuff happening, Life in West America by Rupe Renisto. You can tell if you look closely, largely because these hands kind of have no person, you know, this is an AI art collection, basically depicting a bit of American nostalgia, kind of older school America imagery. Rupe Renisto, you know, Claire Silver talked about him on the podcast we did together. He won a competition that she ran, just absolutely amazing AI art. It's worth it to go to his Twitter and see his pinned tweet for an example. You know, this project minted at 0.1 ETH. The initial trades were in like that 0.4, 0.5 ETH. And now suddenly we're looking at about a 2 ETH floor. So total success yesterday, up about 20x from mint price, just a ton of momentum there. So congrats to people who got into that. And then, you know, back on this AI theme, Genesis by Claire Silver completely rocketed as well. Got up to about a 9 ETH floor. You know, it had been in that 5 ETH floor range for a while. So just really seeing great things from her. A lot of people interested in her art. Second story, Ordinals Go Bananas. You know, ordinals are just going parabolic. So many more are being created every single day. You can see it in this chart. Tropo Farmer here tweeted that one sold for 4.178 Bitcoin, 96,000 US dollars. Very shortly after, Ordinal Punk sold for 9.5 Bitcoin, which is of course an all-time record. That's equal to 131 ETH. It was this alien Ordinal Punk. You can see on this chart that there are 2 alien Ordinal Punks, but that happened after Dingaling had already swept 7 of them. So Dingaling, for those who don't know, has 101 apes, is one of the largest Azuki holders as well. He swept 7 Ordinal Punks. That's 7% of the total supply. There are only 100 of them. Now, remembering just 1 week ago, these were trading for 0.07 Bitcoin. Right now, we're seeing a trade at 9 Bitcoin. So just absolutely crazy how quickly the price has gone up. Some people are actually doing the buying and selling from a Google Doc, or at least the bidding and offering the prices, it's very old school. As I mentioned a couple days ago, you need to go through an escrow in order to even trade these. Now, one thing I thought was interesting was a guy named The Norwegian tweeted about how the art actually isn't all that original. And what he compared the Ordinal Punk art to was Mutant Punks, which is a collection from 2021. You can see here that the traits are the same. I did a bit more digging, and Mutant Punks grabbed most of their traits from a collection called More Punks, which started in April of 2021. So as we know in NFTs, people just grabbing traits, grabbing stuff from each other. And I think that this More Punks is where a lot of the traits were sourced. You can see here this mummy trait, which I think is definitely one in the Ordinal Punks. Now, I think basically it all existed on an open source algorithm that was used to generate the punks. So, I think, this is just kind of how NFTs work. People borrow stuff and take things from elsewhere. This was all open source. But I had originally thought that the art was quite original. It turns out it's not. It's actually derived from other traits from other collections. In terms of why is this going so well? One, the supply is so low for Ordinal Punks. Two, they're difficult to sell, so most people don't. Three, these are very early Ordinals. I think, it's not really about the art here. It's about getting those early Ordinals that are on chain. Four, clearly Bitcoin has provenance, pretty much unparalleled in the crypto world. And I think five is that you put all those four things together and a lot of the whales want them. So you're seeing some of the biggest NFT buyers who are trying to get into this space. Third story, other Ordinal NFTs. Okay, the action is not just in Ordinal Punks. You're also seeing collections like On the Edge of Oblivion. You can see here what happened with On the Edge of Oblivion yesterday. You started with trades at 0.2 ETH about a day and a half ago. Price got as high as 3 ETH for some of them. Floor right now is around 2 ETH. What is the story with this project? Basically, each NFT gives you the right to an NFT that is currently on the Bitcoin blockchain. The inscription order is based on the token ID of the various On the Edge of Oblivion. And once the proper infrastructure is in place, people who own these NFTs are going to be able to burn them or swap them into an Ordinal on Bitcoin. So that's the basic idea. These give you the right to have your Ordinal, to put whatever art you want there. And this concept, as it took off yesterday, you saw the price just completely mooned. If you want to learn more about this, null_ish, nullish on Twitter, is the creator of this. His other projects, he's giving similar rights to, as far as being able to put art onto Bitcoin or in Ordinals, and those have mooned as well. Another project playing this theme is On-Chain Monkey. The floor yesterday went from 0.9 to over 1.5 ETH. Absolutely crazy performance. The reason it happened was they tweeted when On-Chain Monkey Ordinals, and then they ended up basically what they're going to do is put all the On-Chain Monkeys into Ordinals. You can see here that 10 of them were minted on Bitcoin. They claim it happened before these Bitcoin punks. History made. So interesting to see, and not surprising to see, a project like On-Chain Monkey, which is all about being on chain, all about the technology, get into this as well. Story number 4, a bit of a lighter, easier topic, is that Dookey Dash ends. Just wanted to go over some of the stats from Dookey Dash. 25,525 passes were played on. There was $2.4 million of ApeCoin burnt, which is just a small fraction of the supply, but still interesting to see that proof of concept. The vast majority, 489 of the top 500 scores, were from tier 4 passes, and one wallet alone, here's the wallet, this wallet alone had 3 of the top 5 scores. And then the other thing, and I mentioned this on a show earlier, is that almost 4,000 passes were either not minted or not used, which basically left $15 million on the table from apes and mutant ape holders. One other thing, Cyrus here talks about how 51 of the top 100 scores were all just from 3 different players. He says one was on his team. There was clearly a market being created for professional gamers or top-level gamers to help whales or people who own these passes score the best score. So next step, we see what these actually convert into. Very exciting. We'll see more of that soon. And then lastly, just wanted to talk about a few notable sales. First was this piece called Value Systems by Jack Butcher, sold for 9 ETH. I love this piece. I think his work is so cool. But he minted a lot of NFTs a year ago, even longer. And you're seeing on Foundation, a lot of people are bidding for them in that 3 to 5 ETH range. But this one went for 9 ETH. Another one called Experience, also very cool, went for 9.8 ETH on Foundation. I just kind of put this up. I thought it was kind of crazy. What you're seeing is these one-of-ones of Jack Butcher selling for 9.8 ETH, which is far below where the low or where the low serial number checks are trading. Obviously, the biggest sale was check number 2, which sold for 57 ETH. So, the check's floor is 2 ETH. but the low serial number checks are trading just at a much higher price than Jack Butcher 1-of-1s, but there's a lot of cool art there. Go check it out on Foundation. Trade number 2, this HyperRainbow Squiggle sold for 133.5 ETH. There's more to this trade, but let's first talk about the Hyper. If you look at prior Hyper sales, they've all kind of been in this very similar range, 100 to 140 ETH range. So this price was, I think, pretty dab smack in line with historic prices for HyperRainbow Squiggles. But the bigger picture is this was actually part of a 17 Squiggle trade for 412.9 ETH. So there was a seller, in a Galaxy wallet that sold all of these, and the buyer's name was JediWolf.eth. Jedi Wolf has bought a ton of really interesting X-copy work, really a stacked wallet, but interesting to see him get into Squiggles. In the Discord, he said he was thinking, how do you prepare for the next bull? He's already accumulated a ton of X-copy limited editions, and he was thinking that there's limited risk, potentially really high reward on Squiggles, very visually appealing art. So he decided that that was an obvious choice. Also made a point about how he wanted to be in a collection that had no dependencies on teams, and it was really just about the art and the provenance. Third trade to talk about, Where My Vans Go. This piece sold for 23.5 ETH. I had Drifter Shoots on the podcast. He's just such an incredible artist, one of the absolute top photographers. So this is one of his, I think, most stunning pieces. Now, it was at the low end of Drifter Shoots Where My Vans Go pieces. This is just the sales that have happened over the past 6 or 7 months. You can see that sales have been as high as 100 ETH, and this really was at the very, very low end of that. So a little bit of less liquidity lately, and that's just kind of how it goes when it comes to photography and illiquid NFTs, is that, liquidity sometimes can be hard to come by, but a little bit lower than his sales in the past. That's all from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did like it, please like it. Well, that always helps. Subscribe to our channel. We'd love to keep having you see our videos, and we'll be back tomorrow with more. Have a good day.